Tell me the last time that Jack Benny, Red Skelton, any comedian, used his show to do serious issues.
For 30 years, Johnny Carson ruled late-night television with that million-dollar smile and perfect timing.
Shoes somewhere down in Florida, and it's happened to a great many fighters. You're not going to let that happen.
America invited him into their living rooms every weeknight, watching him charm movie stars, politicians, and comedians with effortless grace.
Do I look crazy to you? And you realize it was one of the doctors.
But behind that smooth Midwestern persona, Carson was keeping score, and some guests were definitely losing. The king of late night had strict standards that went far beyond what viewers could see. He valued professionalism, genuine wit, and respect for the show that made him the most powerful man in entertainment. When guests violated those unwritten rules, Carson never forgot, even if he never showed it on camera. While millions of Americans saw only the polished performance, Carson's inner circle knew the truth. Some celebrities rubbed him completely wrong with their arrogance and demands. Others committed unforgivable sins of betrayal that ended friendships forever. A few simply represented everything Carson despised about the shallow side of show business. Carson was a master at hiding his true feelings behind that famous grin, but privately he could hold grudges that lasted decades. From comedy legends who crossed personal lines to fake personalities who wasted his time, these guests learned the hard way that disappointing Johnny Carson meant being remembered for all the wrong reasons. Here are the 6 guests who pushed America's favorite host past his breaking point. 6. Don Rickles. This one was complicated. Don Rickles and Johnny Carson shared a friendship that stretched back decades.
Resorts in Atlantic City tomorrow night, Friday, January 13th. Would you please welcome Mr. Warmth, Don Rickles.
But that personal bond made their professional relationship even more challenging. When Rickles stepped onto the Tonight Show stage, he didn't just roast the audience. He went after Johnny himself with brutal honesty that sometimes cut too deep. Most comedians treated Carson with careful respect, knowing he controlled their careers. Rickles treated him like any other target, firing insults about Carson's marriages, his personality, even his hosting abilities. While audiences loved the fearless comedy, Carson often squirmed behind his desk, forced to smile while getting demolished on his own show. The problem wasn't Rickles' talent. Carson genuinely admired his quick wit and timing. The issue was unpredictability. Other guests followed unspoken boundaries, but Rickles ignored every rule. He'd reference Carson's personal life, mock his clothes, or turn serious interview moments into roast sessions without warning. You never knew if Don was coming as a friend or an assassin, Carson reportedly confided to Ed McMahon. Some nights he'd be perfect. Other nights he'd leave you feeling like you'd been through a meat grinder. Carson's Midwestern politeness clashed with Rickles' New York aggression. While he appreciated the comedy genius, Carson sometimes dreaded the booking, knowing he'd spend 30 minutes being the target instead of the host. Their friendship survived, but Carson privately admitted that Rickles was one guest who could make him genuinely uncomfortable on his own stage. 5. Zsa Zsa Gabor. Johnny Carson valued substance over style, real stories over rehearsed publicity stunts.
My son, you were talking about Zsa Zsa Gabor earlier.
Yeah, everybody's talking.
Said, she was on Johnny Carson's show one time.
So when Zsa Zsa Gabor swept onto his stage in clouds of perfume and diamonds, talking in that exaggerated accent about absolutely nothing, Carson's patience wore thin fast. Gabor represented everything Carson couldn't stand about hollow celebrity culture. She was famous for being famous, married to wealthy men for headlines, and treated every talk show appearance like a personal advertisement for her lifestyle brand. The woman has no talent, no purpose, just jewelry and husbands, Carson allegedly complained to his producers. What are we supposed to talk about for 10 minutes? Her interviews followed the same predictable pattern. Stories about her latest marriage, complaints about her previous divorce, and shameless plugging of whatever project justified her appearance. Carson preferred guests who could engage in genuine conversation, tell interesting stories, or demonstrate actual skills. Gabor offered only manufactured European glamour and endless self-promotion wrapped in fake charm. What made it worse was her inability to read Carson's subtle cues. When he tried steering conversations toward more interesting topics, she'd circle back to her favorite subjects. herself, her wealth, and her romantic adventures. She thinks the show exists to advertise her life, Carson reportedly told his writers. Every question becomes an excuse to mention her mansion or her diamonds. Carson's Midwest sensibilities clash completely with Gabor's artificial sophistication. He could barely hide his boredom during their segments, counting minutes until he could move on to guests with actual entertainment value. 4. Wayne Newton. Wayne Newton thought being Mr. Las Vegas gave him permanent access to Johnny Carson's stage. He was wrong.
And he left, and Johnny never got up, even from his desk. I confronted him, and he turned pale.
What started as occasional appearances became a nightmare of shameless self-promotion that made Carson cringe every time Newton's name appeared on the guest list. Newton treated The Tonight Show like his personal advertising platform, turning every segment into a commercial for his Vegas act. Instead of engaging conversation, viewers got lengthy descriptions of his upcoming shows, ticket prices, and hotel partnerships. "The guy thinks my show is his booking agent," Carson allegedly told his staff. He can't answer a simple question without mentioning his next performance. Carson valued guests who could entertain without constantly selling something, but Newton seemed incapable of separating entertainment from commerce. What drove Carson crazy was Newton's obliviousness to social cues. When Carson tried changing subjects or wrapping up segments, Newton would launch into another sales pitch or start singing without invitation. His desperate need for stage time showed complete disrespect for the show's carefully planned format. Newton's manufactured Vegas persona felt phony to Carson's authentic Midwestern sensibilities. The sequined jumpsuits, the forced charm, the calculated emotional manipulation, everything about Newton's act seemed designed to separate tourists from their money rather than provide genuine entertainment. "He's not performing, he's conducting business," Carson reportedly complained to his producers, "and he's doing it on my time with my audience." Carson began limiting Newton's appearances, hoping the message would get through. It didn't. Newton kept pushing for bookings until Carson finally stopped returning his calls entirely. 3. Chevy Chase. Johnny Carson built his career on Midwestern humility and genuine respect for his audience. So when Chevy Chase strutted onto The Tonight Show, acting like he was doing Carson a favor by appearing,
We got something. This is, well, it beats Exo Man. Would you welcome Chevy Chase?
the tension was immediate and mutual. Chase's arrogance was legendary even by Hollywood standards, but his condescending attitude toward Carson crossed a line that other guests knew better than to approach. While most celebrities understood that Carson controlled their careers, Chase treated him like an outdated relic from television's past. "The kid acts like he invented comedy," Carson allegedly told his writers after Chase's first disastrous appearance. "He can't hide his contempt for anything that isn't Saturday Night Live." Chase's backstage behavior was even worse than his on-camera smugness. He dismissed Carson's staff, complained about the show's format, and made it clear he considered late-night television beneath his talents. Carson's passive-aggressive responses during Chase's interviews became legendary among industry insiders. The icy politeness, the cutting questions disguised as friendly conversation, the subtle ways Carson could make someone look foolish without breaking his professional smile. What particularly galled Carson was Chase's obvious belief that SNL represented comedy's future, while The Tonight Show was yesterday's news. The generational disrespect hit Carson where it hurt most: his pride in the institution he'd built. "He thinks he's revolutionizing entertainment," Carson reportedly said, "but he's just a pretty boy with decent timing who got lucky on a sketch show." When Chase's movie career started declining, Carson felt vindicated watching the arrogant young comedian struggle to stay relevant. 2. Frank Sinatra. Frank Sinatra was supposed to be the ultimate Tonight Show guest.
I've spent a lot of nice evenings listening to your music, and I wonder who Frank listens to.
Legendary talent, incredible stories, genuine star power. Instead, he became Johnny Carson's biggest headache, turning every appearance into a power struggle that left Carson questioning whether the ratings were worth the aggravation. Sinatra's demands started before he even reached the studio. His massive entourage required special accommodations, his song selections needed specific arrangements, and his interview topics came with a list of forbidden subjects longer than most guest contracts. The man travels like a dictator, Carson allegedly complained to his producers. Half the NBC budget goes to keeping Frank's people happy. But the real problem started when cameras rolled. Sinatra treated Carson's questions like interruptions to his personal concert, using interview time to plug upcoming albums and Vegas shows. Carson prided himself on spontaneous conversation, but Sinatra's handlers provided scripts and approved talking points that turned genuine interviews into promotional presentations. The chemistry that made other guests sparkle died under Sinatra's controlling approach. What made everything worse were the subtle intimidation tactics. Sinatra's connections to questionable characters made Carson uncomfortable, and veiled references to people who'd crossed Frank sent chilling messages about respecting boundaries. He doesn't do interviews, Carson reportedly told Ed McMahon. He grants audiences and expects gratitude for the privilege. The fear factor poisoned what should have been entertainment gold, turning legendary performances into stress-filled obligations. Carson eventually stopped pursuing Sinatra as a guest, preferring entertainers who enhanced his show rather than hijacking it for personal gain. 1. Joan Rivers. This wasn't just professional disappointment. This was the personal betrayal that cut Johnny Carson so deeply he took the grudge to his grave.
Funny lady. Joan Rivers is appearing at the Plaza 4 in Century City through Saturday and follows that with 2 weeks at the Desert Inn in Las Vegas. Would you welcome Miss Joan Rivers?
Never speaking to Joan Rivers again after she committed what he considered the ultimate act of disloyalty. Rivers had been Carson's golden child, the female comedian he discovered and nurtured into stardom. She was his permanent guest host, the heir apparent to late-night comedy, practically family after years of friendship and professional collaboration. Then came the phone call that changed everything. Instead of hearing about Rivers' new Fox show from her directly, Carson learned about it through industry gossip. His protege had negotiated a competing late-night program without giving him any warning or courtesy heads-up. She didn't just leave, Carson allegedly told his close friends. She snuck out like a thief in the night after everything I did for her career. The betrayal wasn't just professional, it was deeply personal. Carson had opened doors, shared his stage, and treated Rivers like the daughter he never had in show business. Rivers tried desperately to explain her decision, but Carson refused all communication. Phone calls went unreturned, letters remained unanswered, mutual friends were told to pick sides. Carson's Midwestern values couldn't forgive what he saw as fundamental dishonesty from someone he'd trusted completely. The Fox show failed quickly, but Carson's anger never faded. Even when Rivers publicly apologized and begged for reconciliation, America's most forgiving host remained ice-cold toward the woman who'd broken his heart by choosing career advancement over personal loyalty. Johnny Carson's smile never wavered on camera, but his memory was steel-trap sharp when it came to respect and loyalty. Behind America's most beloved late-night host lived a man who valued professionalism above all else. Which betrayal surprised you most? Share your thoughts and subscribe for more television secrets.